You have stepped into a conversation, and after only a few seconds, you knew you had already lost control. Not because you said something wrong, but because your energy was weaker than theirs. So today, I'm going to show you a truth no one has ever told you. In communication, the strong one is not the one who talks the most. The strong one is the one who stays calm when others lose control. The leader is not the one with the best arguments. The leader is the one with the steadiest state. And when you grasp what I am about to share, you will walk into any space with a presence that makes others adjust themselves instantly. This is the journey that turns you into someone who can speak little but influence deeply, stand still yet make the entire room shift. If you are truly ready to master the way you show up to the world, listen carefully to every word. When you stand in front of anyone, even before you open your mouth, your body is already speaking for you. Your eyes send a signal. Your breathing sends a signal. Your posture sends a signal. All of it blends into a single question the other person always unconsciously asks in their mind. Can I trust you? That question does not wait for your long explanations. It does not need you to present your experience or achievements. It only waits for how you enter that space and how you allow your energy to touch others. You cannot pretend to be calm, and you also cannot hide the chaos inside. People sense steadiness faster than you think. A slightly shaky voice can make an entire room lose confidence. A rushed breath can make others doubt your ability. But a deep calm that comes from within can make the person in front of you want to lean on you instantly. The truth is, the power of leadership does not lie in rank. It lies in presence. And the strongest presence begins with how you control yourself. When you enter a space, whether it is a meeting room or a conversation with just one person, you always create an energetic field. That field can be stable or chaotic, open or closed, drawing others closer or pushing them away. Every breath you take, every pause you make, every step you walk contributes to the feeling people have about you. As I tell you this, you may remember a moment when you met someone who did not need to say much, yet you immediately felt trust. It could have been a teacher, an older friend, an experienced colleague, or a complete stranger. You felt safe when they spoke. You felt guided when they explained. You felt stronger just by standing near them. That is the pure power of presence. And you can absolutely build it. Presence is not a natural gift. It is a skill shaped by paying attention to the smallest details like how you stand, how you look, how you breathe, how you maintain the rhythm of your words. When you let your body stand tall without tension, when you let your eyes stay steady instead of darting around, when your voice deepens instead of rushing, you are sending a message stronger than any sentence. You are saying that you are steady enough for others to rely on. In that moment, you do not need to prove anything. You only need to show up the right way, because when your presence is strong enough, your words automatically carry weight. And people listen to you not because you speak well, but because they feel you are trustworthy. This is the beginning of speaking like a leader. It does not begin with words. It begins with the person you become even before the words are spoken. When you step into a room, whether it has many people or just a few, others do not wait for you to introduce yourself. They feel you before they understand you. They look at how you move, how you place your eyes, how your shoulders relax or tense, how each step touches the ground, as if you are blending into the space or resisting it. Humans are born with the ability to read energy before reading words. Therefore, confidence does not begin with your voice, nor with polished opening lines, but with your inner state. That state either lifts you up or pulls you down, and it is often decided within the first few seconds. When I speak about the root of calm confidence, I am speaking about something you cannot perform, cannot pretend, cannot memorize and recreate. It must be built from within. True calm comes from the clear awareness that you do not need to prove your worth in every moment. You do not need to win to be acknowledged. You do not need to stand out to be respected. That calm comes when you know that you are enough. When you walk into a room with the feeling that you are enough, you no longer worry about who is looking at you, who is judging you, who is waiting for you to say something wrong. You stand in your own stability. And when you stand in your own stability, you carry a stillness that no one can shake. This confidence is not loud. It does not need a strong voice to cover inner fear. It does not need exaggerated displays to force respect. It is confidence born from understanding who you are, why you are there, and that you have nothing to prove except showing up correctly. When you have that understanding, your body naturally softens, your breath becomes deeper, your heartbeat becomes slower and more even. You speak less, but every word is firm. You look at others not to seek validation, but to connect. You do not try to compete for attention, but reach attention through intentional stillness. One of the reasons people lose confidence is that they focus too much on themselves. When entering a crowded room, their mind spins with unnecessary questions. Am I looking weird? Am I being judged? Do they think I am good enough? Does my voice sound strange? Those questions drain all the energy from your presence. They disconnect you from the space around you. They shrink you inward instead of expanding outward. And the moment you shrink, you lose your natural magnetism. Calm confidence appears when you adjust the direction of your attention. Instead of turning all the light inward, you turn the light outward. You look at what the room needs. You feel the collective atmosphere. You pay attention to the eyes of others and see that they too have their own worries. You realize everyone in the room has their own stories and fears they are trying to hide. When you shift your focus outward, the weight inside you drops. You are no longer fighting yourself. You begin connecting. And in that moment, true confidence appears. The root of calm does not lie in trying to be perfect. It lies in accepting yourself without forcing anything. It lies in mastering your breath, your gaze, and the pace of every movement. A calm person walks differently from someone who is anxious. They do not walk faster than necessary. They do not constantly adjust their body to look right. They move as if they fully belong in the space. When you learn to belong to the space you walk into, confidence is no longer something you search for. It becomes something you carry. Think back to the moments you met someone who made the whole room quiet when they entered. Not because they stood out too much, not because they were loud, but because they carried a stability that made everyone feel safe. Calm confidence is exactly that. It does not create noise, it creates silence that others can feel. And in that silence, people understand you are someone who can lead. When you enter a conversation with this calm, you send a clear message that you are steady enough for others to open up. And when others open up, your influence begins. This is the foundation of every high-level communication skill. It begins with you, with your breath slowing down, with your gaze becoming steady, with the stillness you carry like a lantern in a room full of noise. That calm confidence is the starting point of every powerful conversation. When you speak, others do not only hear with their ears. They hear with their sense of feeling. They hear with intuition. They hear with the subconscious layer, where only two things matter: whether you are trustworthy and whether you are steady enough to lead them. A slow, clear, deep voice is not a technique. It is an expression of your internal state. When your mind is chaotic, your voice rises. When you worry, your voice trembles. When you rush, your words lose breath. But when you are calm and can control your breathing, your voice naturally drops to a deeper layer. A deep voice is not always loud. It can be soft but thick. It can be quiet but firm. It creates the feeling that you are standing on solid ground instead of drifting. And that very feeling makes others want to trust you instantly. Remember the times you heard someone speak so quickly that you had to guess what they were saying. That feeling does not create trust. It creates tension. It forces the listener's brain to work too hard to keep up. A fast voice not only exhausts others, but also makes them feel you cannot control your own pace. And if you cannot control your own pace, how can they trust you to control the situation? Meanwhile, a moderately slow voice gives the listener space to absorb each idea, each nuance, each energy you send out. You are not pulling them into tension. you are leading them into steadiness. When I talk to you about the energy of a slow, clear, deep voice, I want you to understand that this is a quiet form of power. It does not overpower anyone, but it makes them willingly lean toward you. A deep voice works like gravity. It pulls people closer without touching them. When you speak slowly, the listener does not feel chased. They do not feel you are trying to control them through speed. Instead, they feel you are inviting them into a wider space where they can hear clearly, understand clearly, and feel clearly. A deep voice also creates a strong psychological effect. It makes the listener associate you with maturity, understanding, and stability. These elements are the foundation of trust. A person with a slow, clear, deep voice does not give the impression that they are being dragged by emotions. They give the impression that they are standing firmly within themselves. This standing within oneself is the core of credibility. Interestingly, a deep voice does not only affect the listener, but also affects you. When you lower your voice, your mind naturally slows. When you pronounce each word clearly, you force yourself to breathe deeper. When you speak slower, your brain has time to organize thoughts better. Meaning that by adjusting your voice alone, you are adjusting your entire internal state. You do not need to be perfect. Start by breathing a little deeper, speaking a little slower, pausing slightly before important points. Each small movement makes the listener feel that you possess something most people lack: intentional presence. Think about someone who spoke very little, but every time they opened their mouth, the whole room paused. That person did not need to be powerful by title, but they were powerful by presence. A big part of that presence was how they used their voice. Not rushing, not rambling, not performing, just a grounded tone and steady certainty in every pause. When you speak fast, people hear your fear. When you speak slow, people hear your confidence. When you speak high, people hear your tension. When you speak deep, people hear your steadiness. And humans are naturally drawn to what makes them feel safe. A slow, clear, deep voice is not for making yourself look important. It is for becoming someone who can lead through full presence. When you master your breath, your voice naturally deepens. When you master your gaze, your words naturally slow down. When you master your rhythm, others naturally want to listen to you. You do not need to force anyone. You only need to hold your steadiness and let your voice carry that energy outward. One profound truth you must understand is that a voice is not just sound. It is frequency. It is an energetic field that carries your emotions, your beliefs, and your state directly into the listener's body. A voice that lacks control makes others cautious. A voice that is steady and deep makes others open. And when they open, your message reaches deeper. There is an important truth you must hold. Listeners always judge your voice before they judge your words. If your voice lacks confidence, they will not trust the message. If your voice is chaotic, they will not hear the main point. If your voice is strong but tense, they will see you as forceful. But if your voice is steady and calm, they will see you as an anchor. You must remember that your voice is your energetic signature in every conversation. It is not an accessory skill. It is the foundation of influence. And when you reclaim a slow, clear, deep voice, you do not just change how others hear you. You change how you see yourself. You enter the conversation not to win, but to lead through understanding and presence. And that is what creates the real power of a true leader. When you talk to anyone, the first thing they look for is not your intelligence, but your clarity. Listeners do not care how much you know if what you say forces them to guess. The human mind is already tired from daily pressure and noise, so when you speak with complicated words, they are not impressed. They only feel distance, and distance is what kills connection. Simple words are not weak. In fact, they are the fastest path into the listener's mind and heart. When you remove complexity, you return true weight to your words. You give the listener the sense that you are not speaking to show off, you are speaking so they can understand. When they feel that you want them to understand, they open their heart instantly. That is where connection begins. Remember the last time you heard someone explain something in a complicated way. It could have been a presentation, a meeting, or a normal conversation. You heard them speak, but your mind drifted away. You felt no connection between you and them. You nodded just to be polite, but you did not feel you belonged to that conversation. Complicated words do not create connection, no matter how intelligent they may sound. In contrast, remember a time when someone explained a difficult idea using simple words. No circling around, no dramatic philosophy, no attempt to prove anything, just speaking, explaining, and guiding you to understand in the most natural way. You felt comfortable, you felt respected, you felt as if they were standing with you, not above you. That is real connection, and you can create that in every word you speak. When you use simple words, you are saying that your listener is more important than your desire to impress. You are saying that you do not care about proving yourself. You care about what the listener receives. You are saying that you want them to walk with you, not chase after you. People always remember those who make them feel smarter, never those who make them feel stupid. That is why great leaders speak in simple language. They do not make listeners feel small. They do not create pressure through vocabulary. They do not force you to work hard just to understand. They let you relax and receive. When you speak with simple words, you remove the invisible wall between you and others. You extend your hand, not to pull them up, but to walk beside them. You let the story touch them exactly the way they need. One of the biggest mistakes in communication is thinking that using more difficult words proves greater knowledge. The truth is the opposite. Those who understand deeply always speak simply. Those who grasp the essence always explain as if everything is easy. Simplicity comes from mastery, not ignorance. And when you speak simply, your voice becomes more genuine. The listener feels sincerity. They do not feel you are showing off or fabricating an image. They feel you are sharing something valuable without hiding it behind complicated language. When you use simple words, every sentence becomes stronger. The listener does not need to filter, guess, or analyze. They only need to receive. And because they can receive, they feel closer to you. Clear words create safety. Complicated words create tension. Humans naturally move toward what makes them feel safe. Therefore, when you speak in a way that makes others feel safe, you create influence. One thing you must remember is that people do not come to you to see you perform. They come because they want to see themselves in what you say. They want to feel understood. They want to feel you are speaking to them, not speaking just to hear yourself. Simple words make you someone who can reach the person in front of you without stepping toward them. You only need to adjust your expression, and they will naturally move closer to you. When you speak simply, you also allow your voice to carry real emotion. Complicated words kill emotion. Simple words keep warmth, sincerity, and truth. And those are the things people remember the longest. When you tell a story in the simplest way, the listener not only understands but also feels. They do not only grasp the meaning but also see themselves in the story. They begin connecting with you as if you are speaking the words they never knew how to express. When connection forms, influence naturally follows. You do not need to force anyone to believe you. You only need to speak in a way that makes them feel you are standing with them. Remember, simplicity does not make you smaller, it makes you closer. Simple words do not make you lesser. They make you easier to reach into someone's heart. And in every form of communication, the heart always wins over the mind. If you make the listener feel understood, they will trust you. If you make them work too hard, they will walk away. When you master the art of using simple words, you do not only make your speech stronger, you make yourself the kind of person others want to listen to. And that is the foundation of lasting influence in any environment. In every conversation, people often think power lies in strong statements, but real power lies in the questions you choose to ask. A clear question, can open something that dozens of pieces of advice could never unlock. The right question can free a stuck thought, pull someone out of an emotional loop, and make them see something they could not see before. When you ask a sharp question, the listener's mind cannot avoid it. It forces them to face the truth gently but powerfully. And in that moment, the door inside them opens. Connection begins to shift. Trust begins to form. Guidance begins to happen naturally. A well-timed question can ease a rising conflict. It can help someone realize the problem by themselves instead of feeling criticized. It can help them feel respected instead of forced. When I speak about the power of questions, I want you to understand that asking is not a lack of knowledge. Asking is the art of guiding with subtlety. A good leader does not say everything. They ask so others can speak. They ask so others can explore. They ask so others can feel their own value. Clear questions do not focus on faults. Clear questions focus on possibilities. When you ask in a way that makes others open up, they step out of defensiveness. They step into thinking. And when they think, they grow. The right question is one that makes someone feel they already have the answer inside, not that you are imposing from the outside. Remember the times when someone asked you a question that made you freeze because you did not know what to say. Not because you lacked the answer, but because the question was too vague or too accusatory. Questions like, "Why are you always like this?" or "Why do you not understand?" only make people shut down. They do not create understanding. They only create defensiveness. A good question does not focus on the past. It looks toward the future. It does not ask why you failed, but asks what might help you do better next time. It does not ask where you were wrong, but asks what you need to take the next step. People are not afraid of the truth. They are afraid of being judged. A clear question helps them see the truth without feeling cornered. When you ask well, you place your hand on the door of their mind instead of pounding on it. And when you place your hand gently, the door opens on its own. What is special is that questions not only help you understand others, they help others understand themselves. There are things they never thought about until you asked. There are emotions they never named until you asked. There are choices they never realized existed until you asked. A well-timed question can change the direction of a life without giving a single piece of advice. When you ask sincerely, you give the listener the feeling that their thoughts matter. You make them feel seen. You make them feel important. And when someone feels important, they open up, they trust, and they want to follow your lead. That is why natural leaders never just speak, they ask. They know that questions are the fastest way to shorten the distance between two souls. Clear questions also require true listening. When you ask just to ask, the other person feels it. But when you ask because you want to understand, they sense it, and they answer with honesty. Asking is also a way to show presence. You are present in that moment. You are not just waiting for your turn to speak. You are there to enter their world. The right question can redirect emotion. When someone is angry, you ask what part of this feels the hardest for you. When someone is sad, you ask how you wish things could be different. When someone is lost, you ask, what is the smallest step you can take right now? These questions shift the emotional state. They take feelings from chaos to clarity. And a person who becomes clear is far easier to guide. One thing you must remember is that questions are not for making you smarter. They are for making the other person stronger. You do not use questions to prove your deep understanding. You use questions to help them see deeply. You do not use questions to take attention. You use questions to give attention. When you do that, you become a leader in the most natural way. No force, no display, no pressure, just opening doors. A clear question can turn an ordinary conversation into a journey. It can take someone from where they feel stuck to where they can see a path. It can move them from fear to courage. It can move them from confusion to initiative. The right question is the bridge between two human beings. And when you know how to build that bridge, you can guide anyone without raising your voice, without using power, without competing. You only need to ask the right question. In every form of communication, there is one thing humans respond to more strongly than logic, and that is story. You can present endless data, dozens of arguments, and countless sharp points, but the thing that truly changes a listener is the image you paint through real stories. Humans are programmed to remember images before remembering words. When you tell a story, the listener's mind instantly creates a movie inside their head. They are not just hearing you. They are seeing what you describe. They are feeling what you express. They are stepping into the journey you are opening. The reason stories are so powerful is because they do not only touch the mind, they touch emotion. And emotion is always the gateway to action. A piece of advice can be forgotten within hours, but a story can stay in the mind for years. Data can be replaced when new data appears, but a story can live forever because it is tied to the feeling it creates. When you tell the right story at the right moment, you are not just delivering a message, you are delivering energy, you are delivering belief, you are delivering hope. You are opening a door for the listener to see themselves again. They see that they have been in situations similar to the characters. They see that their fears resemble the fears in the story. They see that their desires are reflected in the story you tell. When they see themselves in the story, they begin to believe they can change too, and that belief is stronger than any advice. A story does not need to be grand. It does not need to be dramatic. It does not need to be extraordinary. A simple but true story is the one that touches people most deeply. A moment when you failed and learned something. A time you stood back up from a mistake no one saw. A stranger you met on the street who taught you a lesson. When you tell the truth, listeners feel your sincerity. And sincerity is the foundation of lasting influence. People do not need you to be perfect. They only need you to be real. When a story comes from truth, it carries weight. That weight helps listeners not only understand, but also believe. Interestingly, people do not remember every detail of a story, but they remember the feeling it created. They remember the warmth, the awakening, the encouragement, the hope. And it is that feeling that pushes them to act. That is why leaders, teachers, and great speakers all possess the ability to tell stories. They do not simply share knowledge. They tell the journeys of those who lived through what they are speaking about. They tell about life-changing moments. They tell about patience, perseverance, and courage. They help the audience see that the path ahead not only exists but can be walked. When you tell a story, you bring the listener into the future and make them feel that the future is real. A powerful story is one that makes the listener pause and think. It makes them ask themselves where they are, what they are doing, and who they want to become. It places them in the center of a choice. It makes them want to act. And when a story makes someone want to rise and change, you have reached the highest level of influence. Storytelling is also how you bring wisdom into simple language. If you explain a lesson directly, people may feel lectured. But when you tell a story and let the listener pull the lesson out by themselves, they accept it as if it came from within. And at that moment, the lesson becomes theirs instead of yours. A good story also has its own rhythm. Not too fast or listeners cannot follow. Not too slow or they lose focus. Not too detailed or they feel overwhelmed. Not too vague or they cannot feel it. A good story is like guiding someone across a strong bridge. You do not throw them to the other side. You walk with them. You take each step together. And when they reach the other side, they feel that they walked the distance themselves. Storytelling also carries responsibility. You must choose stories that make listeners stronger, not weaker. Choose stories that give them hope, not fear. Choose stories that show them light, not despair. Because every story you tell plants a seed in the listener's mind. That seed becomes either belief or doubt, strength or limitation. And you are the one who chooses. When you tell stories the right way, you lift people up. You pull them away from their old place. You open a new path for them. You help them see both their ability and their responsibility. One story can change a person. A series of stories can change a group. Someone who knows how to tell stories well can change the small world of everyone around them. A leader never runs out of stories, not because they have lived extraordinary experiences, but because they know how to see lessons in the smallest moments of life. They know how to turn ordinary moments into profound teachings. They know how to breathe soul into every word. When they tell a story, listeners do not just hear, they feel, they shift. And when a person shifts, their life begins to move. Story is the door to that shift. In every important conversation, there are always moments that make your heartbeat rise, your breath grow chaotic, and your voice naturally climb higher than usual. You feel pressure. You feel the need to say something impressive. You fear being judged. You fear being misunderstood. You fear not being steady enough. But those very moments are when others see the truest version of you. Not when you are relaxed, not when everything is smooth, but when pressure surrounds you and yet you still keep your tone steady. A steady voice under pressure is the strongest proof of inner maturity. It says that you are not easily swept away by chaos. It says that you can stay calm even when things slip out of control. It says that you do not need to raise your voice to be heard. You only need to stand firm and speak with certainty in every tone. When pressure arrives, most people react by instinct. They speak faster, louder, or sharper. But a sharp or loud voice does not create real strength. It only creates tension. Steadiness lies in the opposite. Speaking a little slower, breathing a little deeper, holding a small pause, and letting your voice drop to a deeper layer. When you do that, you are not only calming yourself, you are calming the entire room. A person who maintains their tone under pressure often makes others feel safe. They are like a pillar in strong wind. When they stand firm, others can lean on them. When they stay calm, others feel they still have choices. When they speak with a steady rhythm, people begin to listen instead of resist. The important thing is, you cannot fake calmness in your voice. You can only create a calm voice by guiding your inner state back to calm. Meaning you must adjust your inner world in order to adjust your outer tone. If you force yourself to sound calm while your heart is burning, others will sense it. The body does not lie. The voice does not lie. When pressure rises, you can train yourself with a simple rule. Do not answer immediately. Do not react based on the first emotion. Do not let your voice rise just because the other person has lost control. You pause for 1 second. You breathe deeply. You return your awareness to the center of your body. When your breathing slows, your voice naturally deepens. When your voice deepens, your mind becomes clearer. And when your mind becomes clearer, you handle the situation better. Your voice carries the rhythm of your breath. If you breathe fast, your voice is tense. If you breathe evenly, your voice is firm. If you breathe deeply, your voice becomes wide and steady. Therefore, keeping your tone under pressure is essentially keeping your breath. A good breath creates a good sentence. A good sentence guides the conversation in a positive direction. You may remember times when you spoke with someone extremely calm. You might have been furious, yet they still spoke gently without being weak. You might have been tense, yet they still spoke clearly without being rigid. Their voice was neither high nor shaky. It was steady, firm, and it brought you back into balance. That is the invisible influence of someone who can control their tone under pressure. They do not need external authority. They have authority from within. That kind of authority does not make others fearful. It makes them respectful. When you maintain a steady tone, you send a signal that you are not losing control. Someone may try to push you into defensiveness, but a steady voice shows them they cannot succeed. Someone may try to create tension, but a steady voice dissolves tension. Someone may try to shake you, but a steady voice says, "You will not be shaken." And the moment you remain unshaken, others begin adjusting themselves. There is a deep truth in communication that very few people notice. The one who controls their tone better is the one who controls the conversation, not the one who talks the most, not the one who talks the loudest. The one who maintains the calm rhythm is the one in charge. When you control your tone, you control your words. When you control your words, you control the direction. When you control the direction, you control the leadership. The important thing is, you must not let another person's silence make you uneasy. Do not let their gaze rush you into speaking. Do not let their attitude pull your voice upward. Silence is your tool, not your enemy. Silence is where you reclaim your power. When you hold silence, you send the message that you are not afraid of the empty space. And the person who is not afraid of empty space is the one with real strength. Someone who speaks under pressure, yet keeps their voice deep, and even is someone who controls not only their words but their entire energy. When your energy is steady, you become the emotional anchor for everyone drowning in the chaos around you. You turn the space into a place where others can relax. You lead them into your calm. You do not shout. You do not force. You do not pressure. You simply stand firm. And that steadiness is what makes you influential. This strength does not come from technique. It comes from inner training. It comes from learning not to let the situation control you. You control how you show up in the situation. When you master your tone under pressure, you elevate yourself into an entirely different level of communication. You become someone others want to listen to, someone they want to follow, someone they want to learn from. You become the emotional anchor every space needs. And that is the true power of presence in the toughest moments. In any conversation, what determines the level of connection is not the content you say, but the way you choose the words to express that content. Some sentences make the listener open up, while others make them shut down instantly. Some words help them feel understood, and some make them feel threatened. The important thing is that most people do not realize that every word they use is creating a reaction in the other person. That reaction can lead to cooperation or resistance. It can lead to closeness or distance. It can lead to trust or suspicion. Words are never neutral. They either build bridges or build walls. And it is your responsibility to choose which kind of words you want to bring into the conversation. When you choose words as bridges, you make the listener feel that you are standing with them, not against them. You make them feel you want to understand, not judge. When you choose words as barriers, you force the listener to protect themselves. And when someone enters a defensive state, any conversation becomes difficult. A person cannot defend themselves and open up at the same time, and you cannot connect with a mind that is defending itself. That is why the first thing you must understand is that the words you use in moments of strong emotion carry the most destructive power. Phrases like "you always," "you never," or "you are wrong" immediately push the listener into self-defense. They are no longer listening to understand. They are listening to protect themselves, to counterattack, or to withdraw. But when you use phrases like "I understand how you feel," or "we can figure this out together," or "tell me what matters most to you," you open a safe space. The listener does not feel attacked. They feel invited. Words can be soft but strong. They can be gentle but clear. They can avoid harming while still holding firmness. People who connect deeply all know how to speak without hurting. They do not avoid truth, but they choose to deliver truth in a way the listener is strong enough to receive. One of the most important principles in communication is speaking in a way the listener can accept. Not speaking to release your anger, not speaking to sound smart, but speaking so the listener can take one more step forward. When you use words like arrows, the listener puts up armor. When you use words like bridges, the listener walks across. This requires deep awareness. You must know when the other person is tense, when they are shrinking, when they are opening, and when they are ready. The words you use must be based on their emotional state, not just your own. A wise communicator does not speak based on reaction. They speak based on purpose. Every word has intention. Every sentence has direction. Every rhythm has meaning. And when they speak, the listener feels respected. The second principle in choosing words is keeping stillness inside every sentence. Stillness is not silence. Stillness means not letting emotion overpower your words. When you speak from stillness, your words are not rushed, not sharp, not cornering. Stillness creates depth. It makes every sentence feel more meaningful. In contrast, when you speak from anger or ego, your words become distorted. You may speak truth, but the listener only feels attack. You may be correct, but the listener only feels wronged. Every failed conversation begins with the feeling of being attacked. Every successful conversation begins with the feeling of being heard. That leads to the third principle. Choose words centered on emotion, not centered on blame. Instead of saying, "You disappoint me," you can say, "This makes me feel sad." Instead of saying, "You are wrong," you can say, "Let us look at this from another angle." A small change in wording creates a big change in the listener's emotional state. And their emotional state determines how much they can understand you. The deepest truth in the art of using words to create connection is understanding that you do not need to win every sentence. You need to keep the bridge. When the bridge remains, two people can continue. When the bridge breaks, there is nothing left to build from. Words should bring two minds closer, not prove who is right or wrong. People do not change because they lose. People change because they feel understood. When your words create the feeling of being understood, you create transformation. You do not need to force anyone to change. They change on their own once they no longer feel threatened. They change when they feel safe. They change when they see you are not there to judge them but to walk with them. Another important truth is the power of simple words. The simpler the words, the easier they enter the listener's emotions. The more complex the words, the more distance they create. Skilled communicators always choose simplicity. No embellishment. No unnecessary complexity. No performance. Only the words that truly matter, spoken in a language the listener can feel. You must remember that the purpose of communication is not for you to speak. The purpose is for two people to understand each other. And for understanding to happen, words must come from a calm place. Words spoken from calm never wound. When you choose your words carefully, you send a message that you value the other person. You value the conversation. You value the relationship. You value yourself. And when you do that, you become someone who can touch others gently but deeply. You do not need a loud voice to influence. You only need the right words. In every conversation, confusion is what makes people lose direction fastest. When you say something that is not fully clear, the listener's mind immediately fills the gaps with negative assumptions. When you use vague language, the listener does not know what you want them to do, think, or respond with. They feel uneasy, uncertain, and sometimes forced to guess your meaning instead of understanding it. When confusion appears in communication, trust becomes unstable. People cannot place trust in something they do not understand. And in a conversation, if the listener feels they must work to understand you, instead of you helping them understand, they gradually create distance. That is why clarity is a form of respect. When you speak clearly, you do not make the listener guess. When you give clear direction, you do not let them drift. When you speak with structure, you make their mind feel safe. And when they feel safe, they receive your message more easily. Clarity is not speaking more. Clarity is speaking right. Clarity is speaking with focus. Clarity is removing what is unnecessary and highlighting what is important. Clarity is not leaving the listener to wander in the darkness of your words. When you want someone to understand, you must bring light into every idea. Many people think the longer they speak, the stronger their point becomes. But the truth is the opposite. Speaking long does not create certainty, it only creates noise. Speaking long dilutes your message. It makes the listener lose focus. It makes everything feel messy and hard to remember. A clear direction must feel like a straight path. The listener should not have to turn left and right too many times. They should simply follow the road you create. Clarity is how you pull someone out of the swirling clouds inside their mind. Remember that listeners always carry their own thoughts, worries, and pressures. Their mind is already complicated enough. When you speak vaguely, you add to their burden. But when you speak clearly, you help ease it. You clear the road for them. And that makes them feel grateful. Clarity is also a form of confidence. Confident people speak to the point. Confident people are not afraid of silence. Confident people do not walk circles around a problem. They speak directly, but not harshly. They stay on point without hurting. They are clear without being cold. Unclear people often fear being misunderstood, so they use too many words to explain. But the more they add, the more lost the listener becomes. What you need is not more words, but more accuracy. A clear direction is like a clean cut, smooth, precise, and memorable. When you say something with clarity, the listener immediately knows what you mean. They do not have to guess. They do not have to fill in the missing pieces. They only need to receive. And this is what separates an ordinary communicator from a skilled one. Clarity also makes you a leader. When you speak specifically, you give others a direction. When you give them a direction, they know the next step. When they know the next step, they feel secure. A leader does not create confusion. A leader speaks so everyone knows where they are going and why they are going there. One important skill of clarity is breaking ideas into smaller pieces. When you speak about something big, the listener can get overwhelmed. But when you divide it into smaller, understandable parts, they can absorb it. It is like giving someone a glass of water instead of pouring a bucket over them. They can receive it because the amount is right. Clarity also requires knowing what you want before you speak. People are vague in speech because they are vague in thought. When your thinking is unclear, your words are unclear. When you do not know your main point, the listener will not know either. Clarity begins inside. You must know what the most important message is. You must know how you want the listener to feel and what you want them to understand. You must know the purpose behind each sentence you speak. When you are clear inside, you will be clear outside. And this clarity makes others trust you. They feel that you know what you are doing. You know where you are going. And people always want to follow someone who knows the way. Another deep truth is that clarity reduces conflict. Most conflict does not come from differences, but from misunderstanding. And most misunderstandings come from unclear communication. Simply by expressing something more precisely, you can avoid countless problems. You can prevent unnecessary emotional hurt. You can protect a relationship from damage. Clarity also makes you strong in a subtle way. You do not need to raise your voice to show power. You only need to be clear to show stability. The listener feels this stability and naturally adjusts their attitude. They respect you more. They listen more attentively. Finally, clarity is a gift you give to others. It shows that you respect their time, their mind, their feelings. When you speak clearly, you make them feel guided, not dragged. You make them feel accompanied, not abandoned. Clarity is the bridge between two minds. When that bridge is strong, two people can build anything. And you are the one who builds that bridge with every sentence you speak. In communication, most people think power lies in the words spoken, but real power lies in the spaces between them. A pause is the invisible space where the listener has time to understand, to feel, and to absorb the energy behind your words. When you know how to pause at the right moments, you make every sentence, every idea, every message carry more weight. You give the listener time to sink into what you are saying, instead of forcing them to run at your speed. A pause not only helps others understand more clearly, it also helps you control yourself. It gives you an extra beat to organize your thoughts, adjust your breath, and regulate your emotions. Someone who knows how to use pauses is someone who does not let the conversation drag them along. They guide the rhythm instead of being guided by it. They take command of the space instead of letting the space overwhelm them. When you speak non-stop without resting, you create a sense of urgency. The listener feels you are rushing them. They do not have enough time to digest the meaning of each sentence. And when the mind cannot keep up, they silently detach from the conversation. In contrast, when you speak and pause, you guide the listener into the natural rhythm of comprehension. They walk with you. They are not pushed. They are not pressured. They feel you are creating a safe space where they can think without stress. A pause carries a special kind of strength. It shows you are not afraid of silence. Most people fear silence in communication. They feel that if they stop talking, they will be judged. If they stop talking, they will be overshadowed. If they stop talking, they will lose control. But the truth is the opposite. The one who fears silence is the one unsure of themselves. The one unafraid of silence is the one with real power. When you dare to pause, you show you do not need to rush. You do not need to win every sentence. You do not need to fill all the space. You let silence speak. And silence can say a lot. A short pause can make an entire room pay attention. It makes the listener stop and wonder what comes next. It creates anticipation. It makes your next sentence 10 times stronger. A pause is not a lack. It is the intentional creation of space so that meaning can sink deeper. It is like the way an artist uses empty space in music. It is not the notes that make the melody. It is the silence between the notes that creates the emotion. When you know how to use pauses, you become the emotional conductor of the conversation. Another profound truth is that pauses calm intense emotions. When a conversation becomes heated, everyone wants to speak to defend themselves, to prove themselves right, to resist. But a single short pause can lower the temperature of both sides. When you pause, the listener pauses too. The emotional wave stops pushing both people toward conflict. It slows, it softens, and in that softness, wisdom appears. Pauses also help you avoid reacting out of impulse. When someone says something that bothers you, a pause gives you time to detach from that first emotional reaction. Instead of saying something you will regret, you let a moment pass so your thinking becomes clearer. A pause is a shield that protects your calm. It gives you time to choose how you want to show up in the conversation. And that moment turns you into the leader instead of the one being dragged by emotion. When you are presenting something important, pauses help create emphasis. If you say a powerful sentence and pause afterward, the listener feels that sentence much more deeply. They do not just hear the words, they hear the silence after the words. And it is that silence that imprints the message. Pauses also help clarify ideas. Many people speak so fast that their sentences blend into one another, making it impossible for the listener to distinguish where one idea ends and another begins. When you pause at the right place, you separate thoughts. The listener follows more easily. Their brain organizes information faster. When they understand, they feel smarter. And when they feel smarter, they trust you more. Pauses are not only for serious moments. They also add depth to gentle words. They allow the listener to touch the emotion behind the sentence. They make the conversation warmer, more real, slower, and deeper. One important thing you must remember is that pauses must come from calm, not from nervousness. A nervous pause makes the room awkward. A calm pause makes the room profound. The difference lies in your internal state. When you pause with presence, the listener feels that you are controlling the space instead of being controlled by it. Pauses also create respect. They show the listener that you are choosing your words carefully. You are not rushing. You are not speaking to win. You are speaking to be true. That sense of consideration shows that you value the conversation and you value the person listening. Listeners always know when they are being respected. And when they feel that respect, connection deepens. Finally, pauses make you appear more like a leader. Leaders never rush in their speech. They speak with their own rhythm. They do not chase anyone's pace. They let others adjust to them. When you master pauses, you step into the position of a leader without having to claim it. Your voice does not need to be louder. Your words do not need to be longer. You only need to know when to stop. And that stopping creates a power that spoken words alone can never achieve. When you step into a conversation, there is one thing you must remember. People do not need you to respond quickly. They need you to understand them first. And that understanding can only come from deep listening, not listening to reply, not listening to counter, not listening while waiting for your turn to speak, but listening to truly enter the world of the other person. Deep listening is like opening a door that lets you see what the other person has never put into words. They may express part of it through sentences, but the real emotion always lies beneath. Only when you listen with full presence can you touch that deeper layer. And when you touch it correctly, the listener feels understood. The feeling of being understood is the feeling that softens people and opens them. It removes defensiveness. It brings them into a cooperative state. It creates a thread of trust that normal words can never create. When you listen deeply, you are not only hearing sound, you hear breath patterns, you hear the speed of their speech, you hear the shift in tone, you hear the pauses they do not even realize they made. You hear what they did not say. You hear what they wanted to say but were afraid to. You hear the worries hiding behind every sentence. And this understanding allows you to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. When you respond with wisdom, your words carry weight, not because you speak well, but because you speak exactly what the other person needs. A powerful response is not the smartest response. It is the response that arises from the deepest understanding. Many people enter conversations with the goal of defending their viewpoint. They listen only to find an opening to jump in. When they do that, they turn the conversation into a battle instead of a shared journey. The other person does not feel heard, and they shut down immediately. Deep listening is not staying silent while your mind races. Deep listening is stopping all internal movement and placing your full attention on the person in front of you. When you do that, the listener feels it. They feel the respect in your eyes, in your breath, in the way you lean slightly toward them. They feel you are truly here with them. And when you are present like that, they let you enter their world without resistance. There is a profound truth you must understand. You cannot persuade a mind that is closed. You can only persuade a mind that has been opened. And the key to opening that door is listening. Understanding creates openness. Openness creates influence. A person does not need an immediate solution. They need to know that what they feel makes sense, that they are not being looked down on, that they are not speaking to someone who only wants to win. And you give them that through deep listening. When you listen without interrupting, the other person begins to speak more truthfully. When you listen without judgment, they begin to relax. When you listen without rushing, they begin to trust. And that trust is the foundation that allows your words to reach their heart. Deep listening also helps you see the problem more clearly than the person living inside it. A confused person cannot see the root. They spin inside jagged thoughts. They are carried by emotions. They see everything in shades of gray. But when you stand in calmness, you see what they cannot. You see the fear leading them. You see the lack of clarity making them lost. You see what they are avoiding. And from that clarity, you can speak one deep sentence that brings them back to solid ground. A response that comes from deep seeing is always more powerful than dozens of rushed pieces of advice. The important thing is this: do not listen to fix people, listen to understand them. When they feel you are not here to fix them, they open up. And when they open up, transformation becomes possible. Deep listening also helps you adjust your tone. If the other person is anxious, your voice slows to bring them down. If the other person is sad, your voice warms to lift them. If the other person is angry, your voice softens to avoid feeding the flame. Listening is how you read the emotional state, so you can adjust the way you show up. Someone who does not know how to listen speaks from their own state. Someone who knows how to listen speaks from the other person's state. And that creates a massive difference in connection. When you respond after truly listening, your words become an anchor. The listener feels you understand the situation and understand them. They no longer feel alone in their emotions. They feel accompanied. When you give people the feeling of companionship, they go further than they ever thought they could, and they trust you. Someone who can listen deeply can calm another person's anger without saying much. With their presence alone, the other person settles. With a single glance of understanding, the other person lowers their voice. With one gentle sentence, the other person softens. That is the invisible power that only deep listeners possess. Deep listening is not just a skill, it is a way of being. It shows that you have space inside. It shows that you are not controlled by emotion. It shows that you are strong enough to let others express themselves without reacting. And that very non-reaction makes your words persuasive. When you respond, the listener does not feel force. They feel clarity. They feel calmness. They feel a part of themselves reflected in you. When you know how to listen deeply, you do not just improve your communication. You improve every relationship. You become the person others seek when they are confused. The person they want to talk to when they face a problem. The person they trust when they need emotional grounding. And not because you speak well, but because you listen right. In every conversation, there is a kind of power that rises above logic. It is the ability to make the listener see what you say as vivid images in their own mind. When you speak in images, you are not just giving information, you are giving emotion, you are giving belief, you are giving a future they can actually feel. People do not act because you tell them to act. People act because they see the image of what they want to become. When you create that image in their mind, you open the door to change. And to do this, you must know how to turn words into pictures. You do not describe with empty phrases. You describe with sensations, with motion, with light, with emotional touch points that immediately make the listener's mind generate its own scene. When you speak of fear, you make them see darkness instead of just hearing the word fear. When you speak of calmness, you make them feel gentle light spreading instead of just hearing the word calm. When you speak of hope, you make them feel warmth rising within instead of just understanding the concept of hope. This is the art of using imagery to activate emotion, and emotion is the strongest force that moves behavior. No one changes because they hear logic. They change because something inside them is called. Vision is that call. When you speak about the vision of a project, a journey, or a life, you cannot just talk about goals. Goals are dry. Vision is alive. Goals describe the destination. Vision describes the journey. Goals describe the result. Vision describes the person you will become when you reach that result. When you speak in vision, you pull the listener into the future with you. You do not say, "Do this because it is correct." You say, "Look at what will happen if we do this. Everything will shift." The listener does not follow you because you push. They follow you because they see. And when they see, they want to move. Vision must have a soul. It must be clear enough for the listener to see exactly what is opening before them. It must be emotional enough for them to feel the transformation in their body. It must be real enough for them to believe it is possible. You do not paint vision with vague statements. You do not say, "We will be better." You say, "We will become the version of ourselves that we are proud to look back at." You do not say, "We will succeed." You say, "One day, when we step into this space, people will feel the energy we create before we even speak a word." When you speak like this, the listener does not just understand. They see, they feel, they want, and they choose to step forward on their own. The profound thing is that vision is not only for crowds, it is for individuals. A person who feels lost does not need advice. They need a new image of themselves. When you paint that image, you give them something to aim for. You do not say you need to be stronger. You say, "Imagine waking up one morning and feeling steady enough to face everything that frightened you yesterday." You do not say you must change. You say, imagine what could open if you took one small but real step. These images awaken inner power. They make change feel not distant, but reachable. Vision also helps you connect the listener's emotions to a larger meaning. A small action becomes powerful when placed inside a larger vision. When you say, just by holding calm for a few minutes each day, you are building the foundation for the life you want. The listener feels that what they do matters. When you say every word you speak today might help someone rise from a difficult day, they feel they are significant. And when they feel significant, they want to act. Humans need to feel that they are walking towards something meaningful. Vision is how you tell them that the path ahead has light. But vision cannot be too far away. It must be anchored in the present. You must show the listener that the path from now to the future is not a jump, but a series of small steps. And each small step can begin right now. A true vision helps the listener see their depth. It helps them see they are stronger than they thought. It helps them see that the future is waiting for them, not hiding from them. When you speak of vision with a deep, steady voice, with grounded breath, with firm presence, the listener feels that future is not a dream but something they can touch. And when you speak the vision with real emotion, the listener feels your belief. They hear the trust in your voice. They see the clarity in your eyes. They see the steadiness in your words. Belief is contagious. When you believe in the image you paint, they will too. And when they believe, they will follow. The art of painting vision with images and emotion is the art of awakening the heart. The mind understands. The heart leads. If you reach the heart, the mind will follow. If you speak only to the mind, the heart remains still. When you help the listener see what they never dared imagine, you open the door for them to step into a larger version of themselves. And when they step into that version, their life begins to shift. You have opened the path with imagery. They will complete that path with action. In any conversation, you will always encounter moments that make the air grow heavy. A sharp comment, a piercing look, a challenging attitude, an unexpected misunderstanding, an emotion that has been held back for too long. These moments feel like a strong gust of wind blowing straight into you. If you are not steady enough, you will be swept away. And under that pressure, your voice shifts, your breath tangles, and your mind becomes chaotic. But if you know how to transform tension into calm, those moments become the very place where your true strength is revealed. When the atmosphere tightens, the first thing you must do is not respond. The first thing you must do is hold your breath steady. The moment you keep your breath even, your heartbeat slows, your awareness returns, and you stop reacting from instinct. Breath is the rain that keeps your clarity when everything around you turns chaotic. When you hold your breath steady, your entire energy stabilizes. And when your energy stabilizes, the energy of the person in front of you naturally softens. Humans always respond to the strongest energetic rhythm in the room. If you let their tension pull you in, you lose control. But if you remain calm and let that calm spread outward, they follow you. Calmness is a form of power that needs no volume. It does not come from a loud voice. It comes from stillness in your eyes, steadiness in your breath, and stability in your posture. When you stand firm, others sense that you are not being affected. They sense that you are not easily dragged into chaos, and that sense makes them draw their energy back. When tension appears in a conversation, many people try to push it away by speaking fast or speaking more. But the more they do that, the more they lose control. What you need to do is not push the tension out. What you need to do is absorb it and transform it. You absorb it with stillness. You transform it with presence. When you let tension pass through you without letting it occupy you, you become the center of the space. Every fluctuation in the conversation begins to revolve around your steadiness instead of the other person's emotions. There is something profound you must remember. The one who maintains the most stable energy in a conversation is the one who leads it, not the one who speaks best, not the one who speaks loudest. The one with the steadiest energy is the anchor. When you remain calm, even when the other person loses control, you make them realize that their turbulence does not shake you. That realization makes them adjust themselves. No one wants to lose control in front of someone who is completely calm. When they see that you do not waver, they naturally settle down so they do not fall out of rhythm. Your calmness establishes the dominant rhythm. That rhythm reduces tension faster than any explanation ever could. In tense moments, the most important thing is not to say something that fixes everything. The most important thing is to show up with an energy that makes others feel safe. If they feel safe, they listen. If they listen, they open. If they open, the conversation returns to balance. When you train yourself to respond with calmness in tension, you become someone who can command the space with gentleness. Such a person is never shaken by someone else's attitude. They are not provoked when challenged. They are not offended by misunderstanding. They are not pulled into the negativity of the other person. They hold themselves. And holding yourself is the greatest strength in communication. To hold yourself means you do not become the version the other person wants you to be. To hold yourself means you protect your deepest qualities. To hold yourself means you keep the direction of the conversation. The interesting thing is that when you hold yourself, others begin to see themselves more clearly. Your calmness becomes a mirror. They see their turbulence reflected in your stillness. They realize their anger is no longer being fed by your reactions. And when they see that, the anger loses its power. No one can stay angry in the presence of prolonged calm. Calmness is like water. Water does not fight fire. Water absorbs it. And in absorbing it, it cools it down. You do not battle tension. You cool it with your presence. When you can transform tense energy into calm strength, you send a powerful message. The message that you have an inner foundation. That you are not shaken by external fluctuations. That you can be trusted in difficult moments. The listener never says this aloud, but they always feel it. They feel whether you are steady enough for them to lean on. They feel whether you are quiet enough for them to open up. They feel whether you are solid enough for them to share their truth. And you give them that feeling by standing firm in tension. This calmness is not indifference. It is not the absence of care. It is strength. The strength of someone who cannot be pulled away. The strength of someone who knows how to transform. The strength of someone who knows where they stand in every situation. When you remain calm, you give the other person the sense that the conversation still has a way forward. You give them the sense that nothing is too late. You give them the sense that they can lower their voice without losing face. You give them the sense that they can shift their attitude without being judged. You create a path back, and that can only come from someone who knows how to stand still. Calmness is not the ending point, it is the starting point. When you are calm, you create the foundation that makes your words powerful. You do not need to say much. You only need to say what matters. You do not need to put out the fire. You only need to keep the fire from spreading to you. And when you stand in deep stillness, your voice naturally gains weight without effort. Calmness in tension is the gift you give to the conversation. It turns you into an anchor. It turns the space into a safe place. It turns the person in front of you into a better version of themselves. And it turns you into someone who truly has influence. In communication, one of the greatest challenges is not what you have to say, but how you hold yourself when the person in front of you is losing balance. People may unload anger onto you. They may be disappointed. They may be afraid. They may be under pressure. They may be hurt and react by wanting to hurt back. They may try to appear strong by raising their voice. They may appear indifferent through a cold attitude. But no matter what energy the other person brings into the interaction, the key to whether you can preserve the quality of the conversation lies in your ability to not absorb their energy. This is one of the most important skills in deep communication. Because if you lose your emotional fortitude, you lose your clarity. Every time you allow someone else's emotions to lead you, you lose your initiative. You stop being the one directing your words. You become the one reacting. And when you are reacting, You are always weaker. Your strength lies in the ability to hold your emotional rhythm before you attempt to adjust someone else's. You cannot lift someone if your inner world is being pulled downward. You cannot guide someone if your mind is being hijacked. You cannot transmit calm if you are tense yourself. That is why emotional fortitude is the first step to true influence. Emotional fortitude does not mean you do not feel. It means you do not let feelings control your actions or words. When someone comes to you in tension, the first thing they observe is not what you say. They observe your breathing. They observe your eyes. They observe how your shoulders rest, how you stand, how your hands settle, how you use pauses. If they see you waver, they add more pressure. If they see you tense, they tense more. If they see you defensive, they attack. But if they see you standing steady, they soften. Humans always respond to the strongest subconscious signal in the room. And the strongest signal is not volume. The strongest signal is stability. When you keep your breath steady, even when the air grows hot, you send the message that you are not afraid. When you keep your voice grounded, even when the other person speaks loudly, you send the message that you own the rhythm. When you keep your gaze soft and unflinching, you send the message that you are not threatened. And when the other person receives these signals, their body automatically lowers its tension. Their nervous system recalibrates to you. This stability creates a ripple that brings the space back to balance without you needing to say much. When you maintain emotional fortitude, you bring the conversation back to the place where both people can actually hear each other instead of reacting to each other. The second thing you must understand is that negative energy always tries to spread. If you let it touch you, it multiplies. But if you have clear inner boundaries, that energy touches you, then drops to the ground without sticking. Inner boundaries are not walls. Inner boundaries are the awareness that someone else's emotion is not your truth. They may be angry, but you do not have to be angry. They may be anxious, but you do not have to be anxious. They may lose control, but you do not have to lose control with them. Boundaries allow you to see that you get to choose your response. No one determines your inner state except you. When you stand in that boundary, every conversation becomes easier because you no longer feel pulled into other people's emotional storms. You see them, you hear them, you understand them, but you do not become them. The third aspect of emotional fortitude is recognizing when you are about to be pulled. The body always warns you first. Your shoulders tense slightly, your breath quickens, your chest heats up, your neck tightens. When these signs appear, you must immediately return to your anchor. One deep breath, one short pause, one moment of grounding by feeling your feet against the floor. These things restore clarity. When you return to clarity, you regain the ability to choose how you want to show up. You no longer react from emotion. You respond from values, and values are always stronger than emotions. When you maintain emotional fortitude, you are not provoked when someone tests you. You are not wounded by words spoken from their pain. You are not shaken by attitudes meant to control you. You see through the surface and recognize what is happening inside them. And when you see it, you stop being pulled by it. Next, you must learn how to stand inside your own energy without dissolving into someone else's. This comes from knowing who you are in every conversation. You are the one holding the rhythm. You are the one bringing the light. You are the one creating calm. When you hold this role in your mind, you stop being swayed by the other person's attitude. You stand in the position of an inner leader, and an inner leader must never lose themselves. Another profound truth is that negative energy is only powerful when you respond with negativity. When you respond with calmness, it loses its force. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is discipline. Calmness is self-control. Calmness is non-reaction. Calmness is what makes others realize they cannot pull you into their darkness. And when they realize that, they either soften or step away. Both outcomes benefit you. Finally, emotional fortitude makes you appear to others as a safe harbor. A person may lose control anywhere else, but when they stand in front of you, They feel they no longer need to brace themselves. They lower their voice. They breathe more evenly. They soften. You become a place where they can be themselves without fear of judgment. When you become that person, you create influence deeper than any words could. You do not inspire only through speech. You inspire through your state of being, and that state follows you into every space you enter. When you reach the end of this journey, you realize something most people never understand in their entire lifetime. True power in communication does not come from technique. It does not come from speaking well or arguing skillfully. It does not come from how much experience you have or how many books you have read. True power comes from the state you bring into the conversation. That state is built from your breath, your heartbeat, your eyes, your presence, and the inner foundation you have cultivated throughout every part of this journey. When you understand how to stand firmly within yourself, you are no longer shaken by the emotions of the person in front of you. When you know how to listen deeply, you no longer need to win. When you know how to use words as bridges, you no longer fear being misunderstood. When you know how to transform tension into calm, you become an anchor. And when you become an anchor, you carry a quiet kind of strength that makes others adjust themselves simply by standing near you. In this world, where people are always rushing, always tense, always reactive, your calmness is a gift very few can offer. It is not loud but deep, not showy but powerful, not demanding but naturally respected. And the beauty of it is that you do not have to try to prove anything. You only need to show up with the right state. When you step into a room with a grounded voice, steady breath, and stable energy, people feel as if they have entered a space with new air, a place lighter, warmer, deeper, a place where they can loosen some of the tension they have been carrying. In that moment, you are not just someone speaking. You are someone leading the space, and leading the space is the highest level of communication mastery. The final truth you must remember is that this power does not come from wanting to control others, but from controlling yourself. You do not need to change anyone. You only need to show up as the deepest and calmest version of yourself. When you do this, every conversation naturally becomes better. Everyone around you naturally opens more. Every emotion becomes easier to balance. And every word you speak naturally carries the weight of someone who understands themselves. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The beginning of a version of you that you can bring into every day, every situation, every encounter. From today, when you step out and speak with anyone, remember that you always have the power to choose the energy you carry. You always have the power to choose calm over reaction. You always have the power to hold the rhythm instead of being pulled by it. And you always have the power to show up as the person who makes others stronger just by standing beside you. You have just completed a journey that helped you understand a simple yet powerful truth. Strength in communication does not lie in technique. It lies in the state you carry, in the way you breathe, the way you look, the way you stand, the way you use silence, the way you listen, and the way you stay calm, even when others lose control. When you know how to transform tension into stillness, when you choose words that build bridges instead of distance, when you show up with certainty from within, you are no longer just a participant in the conversation. You become the one who leads the space. And when you can hold your emotional fortitude, you walk into any place carrying a quiet strength that makes others adjust themselves simply because they are standing near you. Thank you for taking the time to listen until the end of this journey. If today's message resonated with you, if it helped you see a stronger version of yourself, I'd truly appreciate it if you leave a like, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. Every small action you take gives me more motivation to create deeper content for you. I'll see you in the next video.